My son forgot my birthday, and my daughter-in-law said, "It's just another day. Don't be so dramatic." Then she posted a photo from Key West with the whole family, even the dog. A week later, my son called me and said, "Mom, the mortgage payment hasn't gone through yet." I replied, "It's just another payment. Don't be so dramatic." I'm glad you're here to listen to my story. Follow it to the end and let me know in the comments what city you're reading from. I'd love to see how far my story has traveled. I woke up that Tuesday in October with a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't excitement exactly, but more a mix of hope and anxiety that I'd come to associate with my birthdays over the last few years. 64. I had reached an age where each year felt like a gift, but also a reminder of how long it had been since I felt truly celebrated. The clock read 7 in the morning when I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen to make my coffee. The house was quiet, as always. I'd lived alone for the past 8 years, ever since my husband George died, but I'd never quite gotten used to the silence, especially on days like this. As the coffee brewed, I couldn't help but glance at my phone. The screen was dark, not a single text, not a missed call, nothing. It's still early, I told myself, trying to soothe the pang of disappointment that was already starting to form in my stomach. At 8, I checked again. Nothing. At 9, the same. By 10 o'clock, that pang had turned into a dull but constant ache. Tyler, my only son, had always been a little absent-minded, but he'd never forgotten my birthday. Well, at least not completely. Last year, he'd shown up 3 days late with wilted flowers from a gas station, but he had shown up. I decided to keep busy. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, even though it was already spotless. I watered the garden plants twice. I organized my closet for the 3rd time this month. But every time I walked past the phone, my heart sped up a little, waiting to hear its familiar ring. At noon, I couldn't resist any longer and decided to call him myself. "Hi, you've reached Tyler Morrison. I can't take your call right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you." I hung up without leaving a message. I wasn't going to beg for a birthday wish. That's when I decided to check Facebook, something I rarely did. I'd created the account mainly to see pictures of my grandkids, 16-year-old Emma and 14-year-old Jake, but Tyler and his wife Jessica posted so infrequently that I often forgot to check. What I saw took my breath away. There it was, a photo posted just 2 hours earlier. Tyler, Jessica, Emma, Jake, and even Duke, their golden retriever, posing on a beach that was clearly not in our home state of Ohio. They were all smiling under a brilliant sun, with palm trees in the background and tropical cocktails in the adults' hands. The caption read, "Family getaway in Key West. We needed this." I stared at the screen for several minutes, trying to process what I was seeing. They had planned a family trip. They had packed bags, bought plane tickets, booked a hotel. They had included the dog, but they hadn't thought of me, not even to let me know they were leaving. But what hurt the most was realizing that Tyler had been active on social media that very morning and still hadn't remembered my birthday. With trembling hands, I dialed his number again. This time, he answered, "Mom, is everything okay? We're on the beach and the reception is terrible." I could hear laughter in the background, the sound of waves and tropical music. "Tyler," I managed to say, my voice sounding calmer than I felt. "Do you know what day it is today?" There was a pause that lasted far too long. Tuesday? It's my birthday, Tyler. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear Jessica in the background asking who it was, and then Tyler whispering something I couldn't make out. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. With the trip and everything, it completely slipped my mind. I'll make it up to you when we get back, okay? Before I could answer, I heard Jessica's voice getting closer to the phone. Tyler, tell her we'll talk later. The kids want to go for a swim. Mom, I have to go. The kids want... Tyler, I interrupted. When did you plan this trip? What? Oh, about 3 weeks ago. Jessica found an incredible deal, and 3 weeks. They'd had 3 weeks to remember they would be away for my birthday. 3 weeks to invite me, or at least to tell me. Mom, are you still there? Yes, I replied, though I felt as if my soul had left my body. Look, when we get back, we'll plan something special for you, okay? Jessica says we can go to that Italian restaurant you like. Jessica says. It was always what Jessica said. Tyler, could you put Emma and Jake on? I'd like to say hello. Oh, they're in the water right now, but I'll tell them to call you later, okay? I knew they wouldn't, not because they didn't love me, but because it wouldn't occur to them on their own, and clearly no one else would remind them. All right, I said. Enjoy your trip. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. Love you. He hung up before I could say anything else. I sat in my kitchen, holding the phone, feeling an emptiness I hadn't experienced even when George died. At least when he passed, Tyler had been there. He had organized the funeral, taken care of me, been present. But this was different. This was pure and simple neglect. Emotional abandonment disguised as forgetfulness. I looked at the Facebook photo again. Duke the dog was wearing a little beach hat. Even the dog had been considered more important than me. That night, as I ate a frozen pizza, alone in front of the TV, my phone rang. It was Jessica. Evelyn, Tyler told me about the birthday. What a shame, right? Her tone was artificially sweet, as always. Yes, I replied simply, but you have to understand. These things happen. It's just another day, isn't it? No need to be so dramatic about it. Those words hit me like a slap in the face. Just another day. Dramatic. Excuse me? I mean, you're 64 now. At our age, birthdays aren't that big of a deal. What matters is family, and we love you every day of the year. At our age, I repeated. Jessica was 38. Exactly. Besides, Tyler says they're going to do something special when they get back. Isn't that better? A celebration without any rush. I could hear the ocean in the background and distant laughter. They were having the time of their lives while explaining to me why my birthday didn't matter. Jessica, I said slowly, whose idea was it not to tell me about the trip? What do you mean? It's a simple question. There was a pause. Nobody decided not to tell you. It just didn't come up. You had 3 weeks. Evelyn, frankly, I thought Tyler had told you. And anyway, it's not like you would have come, right? It was a trip for the immediate family. Immediate family. As if I were a distant satellite, orbiting their lives. I see, I said. Perfect. I knew you'd understand. You're so reasonable. After hanging up, I sat in the darkness of my living room, mulling over her words. It's just another day. Don't be so dramatic. For the first time in decades, I allowed myself to truly feel the depth of my loneliness. It wasn't just that they'd forgotten my birthday. It was that they had consciously planned to exclude me from their lives. And when confronted with that reality, they had told me not to be dramatic. That night, as I tried to sleep, one image kept replaying in my mind. Duke the dog in his little beach hat, included in every family photo, while I hadn't even been a consideration. Something changed in me that night. A small flame of indignation that had been dormant for years finally ignited. And when my phone rang the next morning with Tyler's name on the screen, that flame was ready to grow. The phone rang at 9:30 in the morning, just 24 hours after my forgotten birthday. I saw Tyler's name on the screen and, for the first time in years, didn't feel that automatic urge to answer immediately. I let it ring 3 times before picking up. "Hello, Tyler." "Mom, thank God you answered. We have a problem." His voice was tense, almost desperate, a stark contrast to his relaxed tone from the beach yesterday. "What kind of problem?" "It's the mortgage. The bank called me this morning. Apparently, this month's payment didn't go through, and we're already 3 days late. If we don't pay today, they're going to start foreclosure proceedings." I remained silent, processing his words. For the last 5 years, I had been paying Tyler's mortgage directly from my account. It was an arrangement we'd made when he hit a rough patch after being laid off from his job at the car dealership. "It's temporary," he had said, "just until I get back on my feet." That had been 5 years ago. "Mom, did you hear me?" "I heard you," I replied calmly. "I need you to make the transfer today. It's $2,400. You know I'll pay you back as soon as things get better." That phrase, "when things get better," I had heard it so many times I'd lost count. "Tyler," I said slowly, "where are you right now?" "What? I'm at the hotel." "In Key West?" "Yes, but I don't see what that has to do with anything." "How much did that trip cost?" There was a pause. "Mom, that's not relevant right now. Answer the question." "I don't know exactly. Jessica handled everything. Maybe $6,000 for all of us, including the flights and hotel." $6,000. 2.5 months of mortgage payments. And it hadn't occurred to them to use that money to pay for their house. "Mom, we needed this vacation. It's been a really stressful year for Jessica with her new job, and the kids had exams." "Jessica has a job?" "Yeah, she got a part-time position at a boutique. It's only 20 hours a week, but 20 hours a week at a boutique, while I, at 64, was still paying their mortgage." "Tyler," I said, and something in my tone must have caught his attention because he fell silent immediately. "Do you remember what day it was yesterday?" "Mom, we already talked about this. I told you I was sorry, and that, how long have you been telling me you're going to pay me back?" "What? I don't know. Why are you bringing that up now?" 5 years, Tyler. 5 years of mortgage payments. 5 years of when things get better. 5 years of it's temporary. "Mom, I don't understand why you're acting like this. We've always had this arrangement." "Arrangement?" I felt something cold spread through my chest. "Is that what you call it?" "Well, yeah. You help us when we need it. And we love you and include you in our lives." "You include me?" "Of course we do. Like yesterday, when you forgot my birthday." "That was a mistake, Mom. I already explained." "Or like when you planned a family trip and didn't tell me a thing." "Mom, you know you don't like long trips since Dad died." "Did I tell you that, or did you just assume it?" Silence. "Tyler, did you ever once ask me if I wanted to go?" "Well, no, but..." "Did you ever ask me if I wanted the dog to be included instead of me?" "Mom, that's ridiculous. Duke is part of the family." "And what about me?" The question hung in the air. I could hear noise in the background. Jessica asking something. The kids laughing. The sound of a swimming pool. Of course you're part of the family, too, he finally said, but his voice sounded less certain. So, as part of the family, I said, recalling the exact words Jessica had used with me. It's just another payment, right? Don't be so dramatic about it. What? That's what your wife told me yesterday about my birthday. It's just another day. Don't be dramatic. Mom, that's completely different. Why? According to Jessica, at our age, these things don't matter as much. But I could lose my house. And I lost my birthday. And apparently, according to you two, that's not important. Mom, please, this is serious. And my birthday wasn't? I heard Tyler sigh deeply. In the background, Jessica's voice became clearer. What's going on? What's taking so long? The kids want to go get lunch. It's my mom, I heard Tyler whisper to her. She's being difficult about the mortgage payment. Difficult? Tell her we'll talk later. We're on vacation. Tyler, I said, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. I want you to understand something very clearly. I am not making that payment. What? Mom, you can't be serious. Completely serious. But I'll lose the house. Maybe you should have thought of that before spending $6,000 on a vacation. Mom, please, I'm begging you. You're begging me. Did you beg yourself to remember my birthday? That's different. No, Tyler, it's not. For 5 years, I have been your financial safety net, paying your mortgage, your emergencies, your whims, and in all that time, how many times have you called me just to ask how I am? I call you. You call me when you need money. You call me when you're in trouble. But yesterday, on my birthday, when you could have called just to say, I love you, Mom, you were too busy enjoying a vacation paid for with my money. It's not your money, Mom. It's money you lend me. Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. Money I lend you? Well, yeah, we've always said it's a loan. Tyler, in 5 years, how much have you paid back? Silence. I'll help you with the math. $0. In 5 years, you haven't paid back a single penny. But I meant to. Do you have any idea how much money I've lent your family over these 5 years? Not exactly. $144,000. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the background noise seemed to have stopped. $144,000? Mortgage, medical emergencies, car repairs, vacations, Christmas presents for the kids, Emma's college. It all comes out of my retirement account, Tyler. I didn't know it was that much. Because you never asked. Because to you, I'm an ATM. That's not true. Isn't it? Then explain to me why the only time you call is when you need money. Mom, I love you. Tyler, I cut him off. If you loved me, you would have remembered my birthday. If you respected me, you would have included me in your family plans. If you valued me as anything more than a source of income, you wouldn't be calling me from your $6,000 vacation to ask me to pay your mortgage. What are you saying? I'm saying it's over. What's over? All of it. No more payments. No more loans. No more being your financial life raft while you treat me like an old piece of furniture. Mom, you can't do this. Can I? It's my money, Tyler. My money that I have been giving you for 5 years in exchange for nothing but neglect and disrespect. I heard Jessica in the background, her voice now sharp and urgent. What is going on? Is she going to pay or not? Tyler, I said, and my voice was final. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. When you get back, you can figure out how to pay your own mortgage. Mom, wait. I hung up. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't rushing to solve his problems. For the first time in my adult life, I put my emotional needs above my son's financial ones. I sat in my kitchen, staring at my phone, which had already started ringing again with calls from Tyler. I didn't answer. Instead, I went to my study and pulled out a shoebox I kept in the closet. Inside were all the receipts, all the bank transfers, all the evidence of the loans I had made over the years. It was time to take a full inventory. It was time to see exactly how much it had cost me to be a loving mother to a son who had forgotten how to love me back. The shoebox I pulled from my closet was heavier than I remembered. I had been meticulously filling it for years, saving every receipt, every transfer slip, every little piece of evidence of my generosity, which now felt more like systematic foolishness. I sat on the floor of my study and dumped the entire contents onto the rug. Papers scattered everywhere, bank receipts, transfer confirmations, medical bills I'd paid, car repair invoices, college tuition documents. It was like seeing the financial history of my last few years spilled out in front of me. I picked up the first paper, a transfer for $200 from 5 years ago when Tyler lost his job. The memo read, "For food and basic expenses until he finds work." I remembered that day perfectly. Tyler had come to my house with tears in his eyes, with 11-year-old Emma and 9-year-old Jake clinging to his legs, telling me he didn't know how he was going to feed his family. The second paper, $2,000 for the down payment on their new house, when he finally found another job. "Just until I get settled, Mom. I promise I'll pay it all back." The third, $500 for Emma's school uniform when she started at a private school that Jessica had insisted was essential for her future. I went through paper after paper, and with each one, a new wave of memories hit me. They weren't just numbers on a page. They were moments of my life where I had chosen to put my son's needs before my own. $3,000 to repair their roof after a storm, $800 for Jessica's car repair, $1,500 for last year's family vacation to Disney World, which Tyler said the kids deserved after a tough year at school, $4,000 for medical expenses when Jake broke his arm and their insurance didn't cover everything, $2,000 for Emma's first semester of college tuition. And on it went, paper after paper, year after year, each expense justified at the time, each loan promised to be repaid when things got better. When I finished adding it all up, the sum was even more devastating than I had calculated on the phone. $157,400, not the $144,000 I'd told Tyler. I had underestimated my own generosity, but there was something else in that box. At the bottom, I found a manila folder I'd completely forgotten about. I opened it with trembling fingers and found something that made me hold my breath. Letters, handwritten letters from Tyler from the first few years after George's death. I had saved them because, at the time, they had brought me so much joy, so much hope that maybe my son really did need and value me. I picked up the first letter, dated 6 years ago. "Dear Mom, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for us this year. I know Dad would be proud to see how you're taking care of the whole family. Without your help, I don't know what we would have done. You are the rock of this family, and I promise that one day I will pay back everything you've invested in us." I love you, Tyler. I read the letter 3 times, feeling each word cut like a razor. The rock of the family. That's what I had been. A silent pillar holding up the weight of everyone else while they lived their lives without a care. The second letter was from 4 years ago. Mom, Jessica, and I were talking last night about how lucky we are to have you. Not many people have a mother so generous and understanding. The kids are always talking about how amazing their Grandma Evie is. Emma says you're her favorite person in the world. We know these years have been tough for you too, but I want you to know that everything you've done for us is creating beautiful memories for the kids. One day, when I can help you the way you've helped us, I hope I can be half as generous as you've been. Emma says you're her favorite person in the world. Those words hurt more than anything else because I knew they were no longer true. Not after years of Jessica filling her head with ideas about what was normal and what wasn't. I continued reading letter after letter, each one filled with gratitude, promises, and apparent love. But I also noticed something else. The letters became less frequent over time, and the expressions of gratitude grew more mechanical, more formulaic. The last letter was from just a 1.5 years ago. Mom, thanks for helping with Emma's tuition. We know it's a lot of money, but Jessica and I really believe a good education is the best investment we can make. The kids send their regards. The kids send their regards. Not love you or miss you. Just regards, as if I were a distant acquaintance. I got up from the floor, leaving all the papers scattered, and went to my computer. I needed to see something. I opened my online bank account and started reviewing the last few years of transfers to Tyler. What I discovered left me speechless. Not only had I been paying the monthly $2,400 mortgage, but I had also been covering most of their daily expenses without even fully realizing it. Automatic transfers of $500 every 2 weeks for groceries. Direct payments to the electric company when they fell behind. Emergency transfers that had become so routine I made them without thinking. But what truly crushed me was realizing that for the past 2 years, the only times Tyler called me were to ask for money. I checked my call history on my phone. Every single call from Tyler in the last 24 months had been followed by a bank transfer within the next 48 hours. Every single call. There wasn't a single conversation in 2 years that hadn't ended with him needing money. I went to the kitchen for a glass of water, trying to process the magnitude of what I had discovered. It wasn't just that I had been financially supporting my adult son. It was that he had systematically turned our relationship into a business transaction where I was the bank and he was the client. And Jessica knew everything. Suddenly, I remembered something. Last year, for Emma's 15th birthday, Tyler had asked me for money for a surprise party Jessica wanted to throw. $1,000 for decorations, food, and a DJ. I had been excited to contribute to my granddaughter's happiness. But when I arrived at the party, Emma didn't seem surprised at all. And when I asked Jessica about the preparations, she had said something odd. Oh, Emma knew about the party for weeks. It wasn't really a surprise. So why had Tyler told me it was a surprise? Why had he justified the $1,000 as something special when it obviously wasn't? I started to remember other inconsistencies. Jake's medical emergency that turned out to be just a routine checkup. The urgent car repair that I later discovered was just regular maintenance. The unexpected bills that appeared right before they bought something new for the house. I had been manipulated, systematically, consistently manipulated. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Tyler, probably calling from the beach again. This time I answered. "Hello, Tyler." "Mom, thank God. Listen, I talked to Jessica and the kids, and we all agree that when we get back, we're going to throw an amazing birthday celebration for you." "Oh, really?" "Yeah, it's going to be beautiful. Jessica is already planning everything. We'll invite the whole family. There will be music, food. And who is going to pay for this party, Tyler?" There was a pause. "Well, I thought maybe we could split the cost." "Split it between who?" "Between you and me, obviously." "Tyler," I said slowly, "do you realize what you just said?" "What do you mean?" "You're asking me to pay for my own birthday party after you forgot my actual birthday. That's not how I see it." "Then how do you see it?" "I see it as an opportunity for the family to get together and celebrate." "The family? You mean the same family that is currently in Key West without me?" "Mom, we already talked about that." "Tyler, tell me something. In the last 2 years, how many times have you called me just to talk, without asking for money, without needing something, just to ask how I am?" I call you all the time. Answer the question." A long silence. "I don't know exactly." 0 times, Tyler. 0. That can't be true. I checked my call logs. Every single call from you in the last 2 years has been followed by a request for money. Mom, that's a coincidence. Really? 24 months of coincidences? I could hear Jessica in the background, asking what was happening. Tyler, I continued, I want you to think very carefully about your answer to this question. When was the last time you told me I love you without asking for money in the same conversation? The silence that followed gave me the answer I needed. Mom, you can't remember, can you? That doesn't mean anything. It means everything, Tyler. It means our relationship has become a transaction. You get money, and I get crumbs of affection. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? $157,400, Tyler. What? That is the exact amount I have lent your family in the last 5 years. Absolute silence. And do you know how much you've paid back? Mom, $0. Not a single penny. But I meant to. Tyler, intentions don't pay mortgages. Intentions don't buy groceries. Intentions don't support a family for 5 years. What are you trying to say? I'm saying I am no longer your personal bank, and more importantly, I am no longer going to be treated like one. I hung up the phone and turned it off completely. I went back to my study, where all the papers were still scattered on the floor. I looked at them for a moment. Then I started gathering them up, organizing them in chronological order. It was time to document exactly how I had gotten to this point, and it was time to decide what I was going to do about it. Because one thing was clear. The Tyler who had written those letters full of love and gratitude no longer existed. Or maybe he never really had. And the Evelyn who had allowed herself to be used for 5 years wasn't going to exist anymore either. I kept my phone off for 3 full days, 3 days of absolute silence that gave me a perspective I hadn't had in years. No emergency calls, no urgent requests for money, no constant anxiety of wondering when the next crisis would come that I would have to solve with my checkbook. It was strange how liberating it felt not to be needed. On the 4th day, when I finally turned the phone on, I had 37 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from Tyler, all gradually escalating from pleading to something that bordered on threats. The messages told a fascinating story. Message 1, Mom, please pick up. We need to talk. Message 5, Mom, this is ridiculous. We're family. Message 10, the bank called me again. They're going to foreclose next week if I don't pay. Message 15, Mom, the kids are asking why Grandma doesn't love us anymore. Message 20, Jessica says you're having some kind of emotional breakdown. Do you need medical help? Message 23, Mom, this is cruel and childish. Dad would be ashamed of how you're acting. That last message made me pause. Tyler had invoked the memory of his father, my George, to manipulate me. It was a line he had never crossed before, and it made me realize just how desperate he really was. I decided to call him back, not to give in, but because I was curious to see just how far my son had fallen. He answered before the first ring. Mom, thank God. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. I've been right here, Tyler. I just decided not to be available for your financial emergencies. Mom, this isn't a game. They're going to take my house. Are you back from Florida? Yes, we got back yesterday. But that doesn't matter now. Did you have fun? What? Yes, it was. Mom, we can't talk about that now. How much did you spend in total? Mom, please. It's a simple question, Tyler. A deep sigh. $8,000. But we found some amazing deals and $8,000. I repeated the number slowly. More than 3 months of mortgage payments. Mom, we had already planned and paid for the trip before we knew there was a problem with the mortgage. Liar. Excuse me? You're lying, Tyler. You called me from Key West saying the bank had called you that morning. But banks don't call for payments that are only 3 days late. They call when you haven't paid for weeks. Silence. How long had you been behind on the mortgage before the trip? Mom. How long, Tyler? 2 months, he finally admitted. But I thought when I got back, you lied. You lied directly to me. I didn't exactly lie. You planned an $8,000 vacation, knowing you hadn't paid your mortgage in 2 months, and then you called me from the beach, pretending it was a sudden emergency. It wasn't like that. Then how was it? It was complicated. Explain the complication to me. Well, Jessica had been planning this trip for months. It was for her birthday, and the kids were really excited. Jessica's birthday? Yeah, she turned 39 in August, and Tyler, my voice became dangerously quiet. You spent $8,000 on Jessica's birthday, but you couldn't remember mine? That's different. How is it different? Well, Jessica had been feeling down, and the kids thought it would be nice. The kids thought, or Jessica told them to think. Mom, why are you making this so difficult? Because I'm tired of being a fool, Tyler. That statement seemed to surprise him as much as it did me. I had never spoken to my son like that. Mom, you are not a fool. No? Then explain to me how an intelligent 64-year-old woman ends up paying out $157,000 in loans that are never repaid. Because you're generous and... No, Tyler, because I was a fool, because I confused being a good mother with being an ATM. That's not fair. You know what I discovered when I checked my records? That in the last 6 months, I've been paying not only your mortgage, but also your utilities, your insurance, and $500 every 2 weeks for groceries. Silence. Tyler, do you have any expenses that you actually pay yourself? Of course I do. I pay my cell phone bill. How much is your cell phone bill? $80 a month. $80 a month, while I pay $3,500 a month for your basic expenses. Mom, I didn't know it was that much. Why did you never ask? Because it was convenient for you not to know. That's not true. Tyler, answer me honestly. Did you ever wonder where the money was coming from? Did you ever think about my financial situation? Of course I did. Really? Do you know how much I get from Social Security each month? Well, not exactly. $2,100. My Social Security payment is $2,100 a month, plus another $800 from your father's pension. But that means I'm paying more for your expenses than I receive in monthly income. So, how? I've been spending my retirement savings, Tyler. The savings your father and I built up over 40 years of work. The silence that followed was absolute. How much? How much is left? In my savings account, $32,000, down from the $180,000 I had when your father died. Oh my God. Yes, oh my God is right. Mom, I didn't know. Why didn't you want to know? It was easier to assume the money just magically appeared whenever you needed it. What are you going to do when it runs out? That's an interesting question coming from you. What do you mean? I mean that for 5 years, I've been worrying about your financial future. When was the last time you worried about mine? I do worry. Tyler, if you really worried, you would have noticed that a 64-year-old woman cannot financially support a family of 4 indefinitely. You're right, he said finally, and for a moment, I thought he might be starting to understand. You're right. I've been inconsiderate. But Mom, now that I understand the situation, we can make a plan. I can get a second job. Jessica can work more hours. Tyler, it's too late for that. What do you mean? I mean, I don't trust you anymore. The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them, but the moment I said them, I knew they were completely true. Mom, that's a terrible thing to say. I'm your son. You're the man who lied to me about his financial situation for years. You're the man who spent $8,000 on vacation knowing he hadn't paid his mortgage. You're the man who only calls me when he needs money. But I can change. Can you? Because the last time we talked about change was 5 years ago, when you said the financial arrangement was temporary. This time will be different. No, Tyler. This time, there won't be a this time. It's over. Mom, please. The kids are going to suffer. And there it was. The final manipulation. Using my grandchildren as an emotional shield. Tyler, I said, and my voice was colder than it had ever been. If you really cared about your children, you would have thought about them before spending $8,000 on a vacation instead of paying for your house. Mom, no. The conversation is over. The loans are over. Everything is over. What if I lose the house? Then you will learn the same lesson that millions of adults have had to learn, that actions have consequences. Mom, please. Goodbye, Tyler. I hung up the phone and immediately put it on silent because I knew this was only the beginning. Tyler wasn't going to give up easily, not when he'd had unrestricted access to my money for 5 years. But something had changed in me during those 3 days of silence. I had remembered what it felt like to live without the constant anxiety of being responsible for someone else's financial decisions. And I had decided that I liked that feeling. My phone began to vibrate with calls. Tyler, of course. But this time, I wasn't going to answer. This time, I was going to let him solve his own problems. After all, he was a 38-year-old man. It was time he started acting like one. 2 weeks after my last conversation with Tyler, I was in my garden pruning my roses when I saw a familiar SUV pulling into my driveway. My heart sank as I recognized a silver Honda Pilot I had helped them buy 3 years ago. Tyler, Jessica, and the kids got out of the car with a determination I hadn't seen in years. But something was different. Tyler looked worn out, with deep dark circles under his eyes and wrinkled clothes. Jessica had that forced smile she wore when she was absolutely furious, but trying to seem civilized. Emma and Jake walked behind their parents with uncomfortable expressions, as if they had been dragged into something they didn't fully understand. I took off my gardening gloves and waited for them on the porch. I wasn't going to invite them in. Not this time. "Hi, Mom," Tyler said, his voice loaded with false cheerfulness. "We thought it would be good to come visit you in person." "I see that." I kept my voice neutral. "And to what do I owe the honor?" Jessica stepped forward, that smile never reaching her eyes. "Evelyn, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Tyler told me about your conversation, and clearly there are some things we need to clear up." "Confusions?" "Yes," Jessica continued, her voice taking on that condescending tone she had perfected over the years. "Tyler says you think we don't value you, which is absolutely ridiculous. You are the most beloved grandmother in the world." I glanced at Emma and Jake, searching for any sign that this was true. Emma avoided my gaze, focusing intently on her phone. Jake kicked at an invisible stone on the ground. "Is that why you forgot me in Key West?" "Oh, Evelyn." Jessica sighed dramatically. "We already explained that. It was a mistake. Besides, honestly, would you have really wanted to come? It was so hot, and you know how the sun affects you." "Since when do you know how the sun affects me?" "Well, at our age, it's just common sense." "Jessica," I cut her off, "you're 39. I'm 64. We are not our age." Her smile faltered for a second before she recomposed herself. Tyler quickly intervened. "Mom, the point is we came because we want to fix this as a family. We've been thinking, and you're right about some things." "Oh, really? What am I right about?" "Well, maybe we've been a little dependent on your help." "A little dependent," I repeated the word slowly. "Tyler, you're losing your house." "I didn't lose it," he said quickly. "I'm losing it, but that's why we're here. We want to propose something." Here it came. The real reason for the visit. "Jessica and I have been talking," Tyler continued, "and we thought that maybe it's time for you to consider that you don't need to live alone in this big house." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "Excuse me?" Jessica took back control of the conversation. "What Tyler is trying to say is that this house is too much for you on your own. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a front and backyard. It's a lot of maintenance for a woman your age. And," she continued with that increasingly tense smile, "we thought we could move in here with you. It would be perfect. You'd have company. We could help you with the upkeep, and the kids would be close to their grandmother. While you pay no rent," I added. "Well, obviously, we would contribute," Tyler said quickly. "We could pay for utilities, do the grocery shopping." "With what money? You just lost your house because you couldn't afford the mortgage." "That was a bigger loan. This would be different." "Tyler," I said slowly, "are you asking to move into my house so you can live here for free?" "It's not for free," Jessica protested. "It's family helping family. Like when you all helped me by remembering my birthday. Emma finally looked up from her phone. Grandma, why are you being so mean to Dad? Those words hurt more than I expected. Mean. Yeah, Emma continued with the blind confidence of a 16-year-old. Dad says you don't want to help us anymore, even though we're family. He says you're being selfish. Selfish? Emma, Tyler said quickly. We didn't say that exactly. Yes, you did, Emma insisted. You told Mom that Grandma was being selfish and that maybe she was having age-related issues. Age-related issues. I looked directly at Tyler. Is that what you told him? Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear. Mom, no. Did you tell my grandchildren that I'm having mental problems? Not exactly. What did you say exactly? Jessica intervened. Evelyn, you're twisting everything. We just said that sometimes older people become more cautious with their money. Cautious? Yes, you know. Sometimes they develop an anxiety about spending money, even on family. Anxiety? My voice was rising despite my efforts to keep it steady. I have anxiety about spending $157,000 in 5 years. Mom, Tyler said quickly, you don't have to say the amount. Why not? Are you ashamed for your children to know how much money you've taken from their grandmother? Emma and Jake looked at each other, confused. $150,000. Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. More, I replied, looking directly at Tyler. $157,400 in 5 years. Grandma, Emma said slowly, is that a lot? It's more money than many people make in 3 years of full-time work. The kids fell silent, clearly trying to process that information. Well, Jessica said quickly, but you have enough money. It's not like we were leaving you with nothing. How do you know how much money I have? Well, I assume. Jessica, have you ever once asked about my financial situation? I don't need to ask. It's obvious you're financially stable. Is it obvious? Why is it obvious? Because you've always been able to help us. And what if I told you I've been spending my retirement savings? For the first time, Jessica looked uncertain. What do you mean? I mean my monthly pension and Social Security total $20,900. I mean I've been paying over $3,500 a month for your family's expenses. Can you do the math? Jessica blinked several times. But Tyler said you had a lot of money saved. I had, I said emphatically. Past tense. I had $180,000 when my husband died. Now I have less than $30,000. The silence that followed was deafening. $30,000, I repeated, so it would be absolutely clear. That's less than a year of basic living expenses for me. Emma looked like she was about to cry. Grandma, does that mean... It means your father has been spending his children's inheritance. Tyler turned pale. Mom, don't put it like that. How should I put it? It's the truth. That money was for my old age, and eventually for you. But now, there will be nothing to inherit. Jake, who had been quiet the whole conversation, finally spoke. Did Dad know that? I looked at Tyler directly. Did you tell them, Tyler? I didn't know it was that much. Tyler, I said firmly, did you tell them you were spending your mother's retirement money? Not exactly in those terms. In what terms? I told them you were helping me temporarily. For 5 years? Yes, but... Tyler, answer the question. Did your children know you were spending my retirement money? No, he finally admitted. Emma looked completely devastated. Dad, why didn't you tell us? Because it's complicated, honey. No, I said firmly. It's not complicated. It's simple. Your father decided It was easier to spend his grandmother's money than to get a better job or live within his means. Mom, that's unfair. Unfair? My voice cracked slightly. You want to know what's unfair? Unfair is working for 40 years to save for your retirement, only to spend it on an adult son who can't even remember your birthday. Grandma, Emma whispered, I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, sweetheart. You didn't know. But Dad knew, Jake said, looking at Tyler with an expression I had never seen on his young face before, pure disappointment. Jake, this is between the adults, Tyler started. No, I interrupted. If they are going to live with the consequences of their father's decisions, they have a right to understand those decisions. Jessica, who had been unusually quiet, finally found her voice. Well, regardless of all that, we still need a place to live. No, I said simply. No. What? You are not moving into my house. Evelyn, you can't be serious. Completely serious. We're family. Family doesn't manipulate. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't exploit. We haven't exploited you. Jessica, I said, looking her straight in the eye, you have lived in a house paid for by me for 5 years. You have eaten food bought with my money. You have taken vacations financed by me. And you just asked to let you live in my house for free. What do you call that? I call that family, looking out for family. Then we have had very different definitions of family. Tyler stepped forward desperately. Mom, please, where are we going to live? That's a question you should have asked before you spent $8,000 in Key West. But we already spent that money. Exactly. And now you have to live with the consequences. Mom, you have to help us. We're your family. Tyler, I said, feeling a strange calm settle over me. For 5 years, I have sacrificed for this family. I have put your needs before my own. I have spent my financial future on your present. And when I needed something, even just for you to remember my birthday, you weren't there. But there are no buts. It's over. Jessica became hysterical. You can't do this. We have children. You have children. I have grandchildren who have been used as tools for emotional manipulation. Evelyn, this is cruel. Cruel. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to know what's cruel? Cruel is forgetting your mother's birthday. Cruel is lying about your financial situation. Cruel is exploiting a 64-year-old woman until she has nothing left. But you still have the house. Yes, Jessica, I still have my house, and it is mine. Tyler came closer, tears in his eyes. Mom, please, I promise, this time will be different. No, Tyler, this time there won't be a this time. Then what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to do what millions of adults do every day. Get a job, live within your means, and take care of your own family without exploiting others. But we don't know how. And there it was, the final admission. After 5 years of pretending it was temporary, after years of promising to change, Tyler finally admitted the truth. He didn't know how to be a responsible adult. Then, I said softly, it's time you learn. 6 months after that confrontation on my porch, I was sitting on the patio of a little cafe in Santa Fe, New Mexico, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was my second week on this trip I had been postponing for years, always using the money meant for my own adventures on Tyler's financial emergencies. My phone vibrated with a text message. It was Emma. Grandma, can I call you? I have something important to tell you. It had been a surprise to find that my grandkids, especially Emma, had started contacting me directly after that day's revelations. At first, Tyler had tried to intercept our communications, but Emma had turned 17 in January and gotten her own phone. I dialed her number, and she answered immediately. "Grandma, how's New Mexico?" "It's beautiful, honey. But you didn't call to talk about the weather. What's going on?" There was a pause. Then Emma sighed deeply. "Dad and Mom are getting a divorce." I wasn't surprised. A family that had been held together primarily by the financial stability I provided was bound to collapse once that stability disappeared. "How are you feeling about it?" Honestly, relieved. It's been awful at home. They just scream at each other, blaming one another for everything. Mom says Dad ruined their lives. Dad says Mom is too demanding. And what do you think? I think they're both responsible. But, Grandma, there's something else. Tell me. Mom is moving in with her sister in California. She says there's no future for her here. And your dad? That's the thing. Dad wants to come talk to you. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Emma, wait, let me finish. It's not what you think. Well, maybe a little. But also, I think he finally gets what he did. What makes you think that? Because he's been apologizing to me and Jake constantly. He explained everything to us about the money, about how he used you, about why we lost the house, and, Grandma, he's working. 2 jobs, actually. That did surprise me. 2 jobs? Yeah, one at a factory during the day and another cleaning offices at night. We live in a small apartment downtown. It's not nice, but Dad says he's going to pay off all his debts himself. And Jessica? Mom hates the apartment, hates that Dad is working so much. She says you should be helping because that's what families do. Emma paused. Grandma, can I tell you something terrible? Of course. I'm glad you're not paying for everything anymore. I know that sounds awful, but living knowing that Dad was lying to everyone, even us, it felt gross. Tears stung my eyes. It doesn't sound awful at all, honey. Dad says he didn't expect it to be so hard to be a real adult. And what did you say to him? I told him that maybe he should have tried being an adult before he was 38. I couldn't help but laugh. Emma, you're wiser than many adults I know. I learned from the best. Grandma, can I ask you something? Anything. Are you happy? The question took me by surprise. I looked around the cafe, at the local families enjoying their dinner, at the tourists laughing at the next table, at the older couple holding hands as they walked through the plaza. Yes, I said, surprised at how true it sounded. I think I am happy. I'm glad to hear that. You deserve to be happy. And you? How are you really doing? Better than I expected. Jake and I are closer now. And Dad, well, Dad is really trying to be better. Not perfect, but better. Does he want my phone number? Yes, but I told him I had to ask you first. Grandma, you don't have to talk to him if you don't want to. I considered this for a moment. Give him my number, but Emma, I need you to understand something. What? Even if I talk to him, nothing is going to go back to the way it was. I get that, and I think he gets it too. After we hung up, I sat at the cafe until it was completely dark. 3 days later, Tyler called. Hi, Mom. His voice sounded different, more tired, but also more real somehow. Hello, Tyler. Thanks for taking my call. Emma can be very persuasive. Yeah, she gets that from you. He paused. Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. I'm sorry. What are you sorry for? for everything, for using your money, for lying to you, for forgetting your birthday, for treating you like a bank instead of my mother. I waited, but he didn't continue. Is that all? No. I'm also sorry for not seeing what I was doing to you. Emma made me sit down and calculate exactly how much money I took from you over those years. Not just the big loans, but everything. Every transfer, every bill you paid, every emergency. And $183,000. That figure was even higher than my own calculation. How did you get to that amount? I included all the small things I never counted as loans. The groceries, the gas, the clothes for the kids, things I just expected you to pay for. I see. Mom, I also understand now why you can't forgive me. Oh, really? Yeah, it's not just the money. It's that I turned you into something you weren't. I turned you into someone whose only value was what she could give me. Those words hit me harder than I expected because they were exactly right. Tyler, let me finish, please. I want you to know that I'm not calling to ask for money. I'm not calling to ask for things to go back to how they were. I'm calling to ask if one day, maybe, we could build something new. What kind of something new? A relationship where I'm your son and you're my mother, not where you're my financial savior and I'm your burden. And what would that look like? I don't know exactly, but it could start with me calling you once a week just to ask how you're doing. It could include me taking you to dinner when you get back from your trip and me paying the bill. With what money? With the money I'm earning at my 2 jobs. Emma told me about that. She said Jessica hates that you're working so much. Says it was easier when I was paying for everything. And what did you say to her? I told her that easier doesn't always mean better. I told her I like working for my own money, even though it's hard. Is that true? Yes. Mom, I know this is going to sound strange, but I feel better about myself now that I'm paying my own bills. It doesn't sound strange at all. Tyler, do you remember when you were little and you insisted on tying your own shoes, even when it took you forever? Vaguely. You used to say, I can do it myself, Mommy. You were so proud when you finally managed it, and I think that was the last time I saw you truly proud of doing something for yourself. There was a long silence. Mom, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Do you think you'll ever be able to trust me again? That was the $1,000,000 question, literally. Tyler, trust is something that's built slowly, one step at a time. I understand that. And do you also understand that no matter what happens between us, I will never be your financial safety net again? Yes. And Mom, I don't want you to be. I want to be able to take care of my own family. And what if Jessica comes back? She's not coming back. But if she did, she would have to accept that things are different now. That I'm different now. Tyler, I have to ask you a question, and I need an honest answer. Okay, have you really changed, or are you just telling me what you think I want to hear? Honestly, probably a little of both. But Mom, something that is completely true is this. I don't want to go back to being the man I was. I didn't like who I was when I depended on you for everything. And who do you want to be? I want to be the kind of son you can be proud of. Not because I give you money or buy expensive things, but because I'm a good man who takes care of his family and respects his mother. I sat in silence for a moment, processing his words. There was something different in his voice, something I hadn't heard in years. Genuine vulnerability. Tyler, I'll be in New Mexico for another 2 weeks. Okay. When I get back, you can call me. Once a week, like you said. Really? Yes. But Tyler, if you ever ask me for money again, that will be the last conversation we ever have. I understand. Do you really understand? Yes, Mom, I really do. After we hung up, I sat on my little patio in Santa Fe, watching the stars begin to appear in the New Mexico sky. For the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten existed. Hope. Not hope that things would go back to the way they were, that life was dead and buried, but hope that maybe, just maybe, we could build something new and better from the ashes of what we had destroyed. 3 weeks later, I was back in my house in Ohio, unpacking souvenirs from my trip, when my phone rang. It was Tyler, exactly 1 week after our conversation, just as he had promised. Hi, Mom. How was your last day in New Mexico? And for the first time in more than 5 years, that question was not followed by a request for money. It was just a son asking his mother about her day. It was a start.